I think really it's just Serral. I believe that if you remove Serral from the equation, that Korea is dominant by a very, very big margin. I don't actually think it's very close at all then. I think their player pool of players that can win tournaments and have won tournaments is much larger than ours. I think their second tier is larger than ours as well. I actually don't think, like, Europe is good and we have a lot of good players, but Serral is insane. And Serral just ruins it for Korea. Like he's an outlier. Like it's not the same. Yeah.
Hey, SC Historian here. And today we have a rare repeat guest, none other than the captain, Harstem. Kevin and I covered a huge range of topics from rooting against StarCraft originally to making it his life, the Saudi influence on esports, and much more. If you've been enjoying my work, be sure to get subscribed because the content is just going to keep coming. If you really love what I'm doing, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. But with that said, let's jump in to my word with Harstem. So, Harstem, thank you so much for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy.
So, I think the customary question, but how did you first get into RTS?
At my cousin's house, I recall. I was very much into football games growing up. FIFA, and I recall playing FIFA 99 quite a bit at my cousin's house. I'd always play games at his house. And at some point, he was done with it, but I wasn't yet. He was a bit older, and I was like, we gotta play some FIFA today. He's like, nah, I got a new game. Like, nah, we're not playing. He said, all right, we'll play one game. If you don't love it, we'll be playing FIFA for the rest of our lives. I said, that's a fair deal. And we played one game of Warcraft 3. It was like an hour-long game. And all I recall is that he had the Tauren Chieftain. I think, yes, what's he called? Yeah, the Tauren Chieftain. It's a hero that came back in Warcraft 3. After he got level 6, he could reincarnate. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And yeah. I haven't played a game of FIFA since.
That's great. That's a really funny introduction to the genre for sure. Obviously Warcraft was a big deal to you, but why do you think StarCraft ended up becoming such a significant part of your life?
I think just because I like the game, really. I don't think there's any other reason. I remember when I really hated StarCraft, like just the concept of it. I hadn't played it, but I hated it because I knew that it was probably going to kill Warcraft 3 to some extent, and I loved Warcraft. So I remember being very negative about StarCraft. I'd read the forums and people were excited. I'm like, I hate you guys. I want to play Warcraft for the rest of my life. I was 14 or 15.
It sounds a little bit like some of the Stormgate StarCraft controversy online right now.
Yeah. It's like, I have a good thing going on. Leave me alone. That's what I felt like. But then I played StarCraft and I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. I remember in my first game I ever played on Steps of War, I cannon rushed a good friend of mine that I never managed to beat in Warcraft 3. And I beat him with a cannon rush and I was like, okay, this is all right. I like this game. We've been playing for a month as well. It was my first game. I was like, oh, cannon rushing is cool. I like this.
That is wonderful. I really love hearing the really early StarCraft 2 stories from people and people being completely misguided and but just finding fun in a very organic way.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think a lot of people are of the opinion that it's kind of a marvel that you're able to maintain the level of play that you have been while also putting out the amount of content that you do and being so dedicated to that part of your life and that being a profession in and of itself. How are you able to keep up with balancing those things?
I think they kind of a lot of people stream and play as well at the same time. I think making videos is a little different from streaming because you really kind of have to go out of your way, it feels like. But it's a similar vibe. I think it's kind of natural, and I think a lot of people can kind of do it. It can be a little bit difficult with the consistency, and especially if I go to an event and there's something attached to it, like now I had a boot camp and then an event, it's like 9 days or so. That means I have 2 channels. I'll need to pre-produce
14, 15 videos.
Yeah, well, 20 videos or so. Wow. Yeah, if you also include travel days. So it's that's quite a bit. And especially because Home Story Cup was right before, so I had 4 or 5 days to do that. And in those times it can be quite tricky to also get the practice in. But otherwise, there's a lot of hours in a day. It's definitely, it's doable. And I enjoy it. So it's like other people, they play StarCraft in their free time. I also play StarCraft in my free time. It's also just my job, so it's not so bad.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think the prevailing opinion in the community for a lot of people is that if you start investing yourself into doing a lot of streaming or doing a ton of commentary or something like that, or even like if you're just playing and streaming, I think a lot of people tend to be of the opinion that it's not good practice when you're having to interact with your audience. Do you feel like that's accurate, or do you feel like
it's accurate.
yeah?
I mean, you're splitting your attention.
Yeah.
100% is accurate. I don't count hours that I stream or hours that I record videos is not practice at all. Yeah,
that sounds right.
It's separate. Yeah.
So, I feel like your results as of late have been particularly impressive. You took out Raynor at this event. Beyond that, at Home Story Cup, you advanced out of a pretty tough group. Do you feel like you're playing at an especially high level for yourself right now?
Yeah, I think it depends what you compare it to. If you compare it to the past 2 years, I think the answer is yes to that. But if you compare it to 6 years ago, I think my standing in the EU scene was much higher back then. So I think I'm trying to climb back up to that level, and it's a long and slow process with some ups and some downs. But yeah, the past few weeks have been very good for me result-wise. It's always kind of funny because it feels like whenever you go into a tournament, you have one or two matchups that are just better, and you almost always have one weak matchup. So I think now I had 2 tournaments where in the build-up, for example, Home Story, I felt like my Proudest versus Terran was quite good. And then I ended up playing a pretty decent series against Clem, and a lot of people say, well, that was cool, that was nice. And now I beat Raynor and I beat Scarlet, and I felt like my PvZ was quite good before going to this event. Well, maybe if I had played a worse Proudest player, my result would have been much worse. So it's kind of unfair to completely judge based on results, but I do feel like that my overall level is going up as well. But I think the results can also be a little bit deceiving in that it's not like I am better than Raynor just because I beat him once, or it's not that I can always give Clem a good series because I did that once. I think that's not usually how things work.
No, I mean, I think that absolutely makes a lot of sense. Like, of course, like generally speaking, somebody can be having a good day, or you can be having a particularly bad day, or vice versa, and that'll of course impact things a lot. Your sleep, your diet, whatever. Like, so there's a ton of variables, but nonetheless, I think the results do mean something, especially over the course of a couple events, and so yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's just extra impressive considering that a lot of the people that you're competing against are only playing StarCraft and not, streaming a ton and producing a lot of content. So it definitely is not what people expect, I think. So, what do you think accounts for the emergence of like the EU as more or less the dominant region over the last 5 years? Now, obviously there's a lot of high level Koreans, but it seems like the depth of skill is almost comparable these days.
I think really it's just Serral. I believe that if you remove Serral from the equation, that Korea is dominant by a very, very big margin. I don't actually think it's very close at all then. I think their player pool of players that can win tournaments and have won tournaments is much larger than ours. I think their second tier is larger than ours as well. I actually don't think, like, Europe is good and we have a lot of good players, but Serral is insane. And Serral just ruins it for Korea. Like he's an outlier. Like it's not the same. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't necessarily 100% disagree with that either. I think Korea definitely fields a lot of high level contenders, where in Europe it's limited to maybe like 4 or 5 guys that are like serious contenders to take events all the time, and then the next 10 or 15 people are obviously very good, but not generally speaking people that are considered favorites going into events, things like that.
Yeah.
So who do you practice with the most as of late?
I like laddering personally, and I play a bit with Lambo. It depends usually. Usually I just ladder, and then whatever I'm weak with, I'll play games with. I don't really have preferences for players. I like talking with Lambo. I like playing with him, and I think quite a few of my games are against him. But I also like playing with Clem. He's quite good.
Obviously, you and Lambo make a lot of content together as well.
Yeah.
It seems like there's quite a bond there. You guys are pretty good friends then?
Yeah, we always were very good friends, even before we were in the same team. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So, what would you say are your proudest moments as a StarCraft 2 pro?
I have to dig very deep there. It's been a long time ago. I don't know. It's kind of weird to think about it because I think a lot of the moments are so long ago that it feels so detached from who I am now. It's like, am I proud of my high school exam results? It's like, I'm sure I was in the moment where I was very happy with the fact that I didn't ever have to go back to school anymore. But it's the same here. It's like I won 2 tournaments in 2016, and at those moments, I was very happy and very proud. But I'll think back, I was like, oh, these were nice moments, but it's so detached from. It's so long ago. Like I can't really recall how I felt at that moment or how it compares now. Like now, for example, I think last year I had a fairly good results in one of the EPT seasons where I beat Hero Marine. That felt very good as well. Where I didn't get a big win, but in recent memory I was like, oh, that was a cool result. I think I ended up getting top 6 or top 8 or something, which is not brilliant, but I was like, it's cool. Sometimes I just have a ladder game where it's like, I played really well. And sometimes just playing really well can feel better than winning something.
Sure.
In a way.
I think that's a really healthy mindset. I think a lot of people maybe get a bit hyper-fixated on results as opposed to the quality of play and the way that you're feeling about.
Maybe these people also win though.
That's fair.
It's very difficult for me to be hyper-fixated on results, and I would have had a very crappy life for the past 7 years.
Okay, that is not unreasonable. But still, I think it's also a very healthy and sober take what you said about not focusing too much on past success because it feels pretty disconnected. Obviously, also the play styles and quality of play is so different now than it was at that point. So I can imagine that really feels incredibly distant. I think it's a little bit different than celebrating high school results, considering it was still part of your career, you know what I mean? So like it's a little bit different than like an academic thing, you know what I mean? I don't know, it feels different to me anyway.
I was just giving like an example. Like I don't think people generally like, it's like asking someone that finished university, it's like, are you still proud of your high school results? It's like, well, it's like, I guess I could be, but it's,
That's fair.
It feels weird,
So, what kind of goals would you say you have for yourself right now when it comes to, being a pro?
I think just climbing the ladder in Europe is the most important thing. Not like the actual ladder, but just like consistently beating players that are right now considered better than me or that I consider better than me. I think, it's good. So for example, in the Katowice qualifier, I took out E-Laser. And for a lot of people, they look at it and think like, oh, that's not super weird. Like that could happen. It's like, it felt good for me because E-Laser always performs better than I do, or 99% of the time performs better than I do. And in that particular event, I took him out. I was very happy with that. Or when I take a series against Rainer, or when I have a series where I take like 2 games against Rainer, I kind of just take it step by step, where if I just beat a guy that is 1 rank higher than me, then it means I'm now 1 rank higher than him. And this is kind of how I want to approach it for the next, at least couple of months and see where that takes me. I think my main goals really are in playing, in competition, not so much in content creation.
What kind of goals would you say you have as a content creator?
None.
Okay.
Maybe not none, but my main focus is just on competition. Like, I make videos that I find funny. Like that is it. But it's not like, I want to have 5,000 views here or 10,000 this or 100,000 likes. I just don't really care about it. I just make videos that I find funny. And then when I stream, I do things that I find funny.
But it is your livelihood.
Sorry?
But it is your livelihood, or a significant portion of your livelihood.
Yeah, but it's also funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think it's very difficult to, at least for me, to do something that I don't enjoy if there's something that I really do enjoy. So if I were to hate making videos, I think it would be so hard for me to focus on doing that, while I can also be completely fine without doing that, if that makes sense. Like, I could just play and I wouldn't have to worry about anything.
Sure.
So the videos is just, I do because I think it's funny. And that's
they are very funny.
Yeah.
I think that's the prevailing opinion. So that's really cool. That's awesome. I think kind of the same thing. People get quite hung up on that sort of thing about, growth of their media and performance of stuff like that. It seems like generally speaking, you care mostly about the overall quality of the content itself, as opposed to the performance of the content.
That's the problem with these Stormgate people, huh? It's always trying to ruin.
Yeah. The StarCraft.
We're just having a good time having an interview.
So, how do you feel about the overall state of balance right now in StarCraft 2?
I find it very hard to say. I think Terran is a bit overtuned still. Specifically, I think EMP is really good. I think the Colossus is quite weak. The mine is good. There's just a lot of things that are good that Terran has, and maybe individually they're not so much a problem, but you put all of it in the big bowl of Terran crap, and it feels frustrating at times, I think. Especially because it's not just that Terran, I think, is more successful, but it's also that they're successful with a very wide range of styles. Yeah. While I think for Protoss and Zerg, that is much more limited. Now, I'm not saying remove this wide variety. I actually think it's good that there's a big diversity in play styles. I think that's fun. But it is an issue that the other guys don't quite have that.
So with the inclusion of StarCraft at the Saudi event and DreamHack Dallas, as well as the overwhelming success of crowdfunding efforts for games like Stormgate and Zero Space, it kind of seems like RTS is entering into a growth period for the first time in a long time. Would you agree with that?
I think the Saudi and the Stormgate / Zero Space, I think is very different from each other. I think the Saudi investments are very artificial. It doesn't actually represent any real growth. I mean, they probably have no clue what they're doing, and they're throwing a lot of money at something that they seem to have no real clue about. So that feels very artificial. The hype around Stormgate and Zero Space, I think, is very real. I'm not sure if this is like a sleeper cell of RTS terrorists just waiting to come out and to blow stuff up, but that's kind of what it feels like. We have all these guys in like different, areas. There's like some guys in Twitch, some people in like freaking like some of the biggest streamers in the world, and they're all just waiting to get activated. It's like, we're ready to go the moment the big RTS comes out, and it feels like that is. I don't think I was quite aware of how many sleeper cells there really were of like. Yeah.
Trump and Asmongold and all these different people.
I knew about Trump, and I knew that Lyric liked it as well, but then you just kind of see it everywhere. And it's also just like real life friends that just message me on Facebook, because that's how long it's been since I've spoken with them, It's like last message like 2013, and then their next message is like, hey, you saw this Stormgate thing? And I've heard of it.
A friend of mine actually told me very similar stuff, where like a few of his friends that like StarCraft, same like in 2012 or whatever, started reaching out to him about like Stormgate stuff. Like, oh, you see this game, and that it's the first time like since StarCraft 2 was on top of the world that organically people in my life are approaching me about an RTS game. I do think the hype feels very, very real.
Yeah.
What do you think accounts for this resurgence of the genre?
It's the fact that there's a game that looks good, maybe. Like you could talk about AoE4 or any of the other RTSs that came out, but none of them really. It feels like the bar for building an RTS is so high already. It becomes really difficult to kind of live up to that. So I think this is the first time where people believe that it might be possible.
So, one thing that has given me a lot of positivity is the type of crowds we've seen at this specific event, DreamHack Atlanta, over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. I feel like in the StarCraft community, for a long time now, there's been a lot of doom and gloom. People are very negative. But I feel like the success of this event, especially last year, some people maybe viewed as a fluke, but I mean, we're seeing a repeat of that now with these gigantic crowds, perhaps the biggest crowd at DreamHack. How does it make you feel? Like, I don't know, are you surprised to see like this type of fans showing up in the way that they are here?
Yeah, I actually also. Last year I was very surprised, but last year the reasoning was from a lot of people that it was like the first post-COVID event in America that we'd had.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, we gotta go here, because they were afraid that it might be the last as well. So I actually thought that a lot of that were like one-time visitors in a way, but that wasn't the case. Because this year, once again, they added chairs. It's much bigger.
Yeah.
And it's full.
I think it's bigger than last year for sure.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like midday today, standing room only. Like that's like midday on the second day last time. Like from my recollection anyway, like we were occupying all the seats, but there was like 20 to 30% fewer seats. So that's crazy growth as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see stream numbers and stuff like that, but the in-person attendance is awesome.
Yeah, it seems to live in NA specifically.
Yeah. I'm curious how Dallas is going to be as well. I'm not sure, honestly. That's a big question. So, Shopify entered into esports with StarCraft, but the Rebellion has grown, obviously a lot beyond just StarCraft and into other games. What about their endeavor into StarCraft do you think inspired them to really double down into esports?
I think their plan always was to kind of keep growing, and I think they had a lot of success with StarCraft, or at least according to their metrics. They were just very happy with what they saw come back kind of from the StarCraft community. It's like I don't think I'm the correct person to ask, because I don't exactly know their decision making when it comes to that. I mean, I do talk with TLO, who's the big boss, as we all know, but it's hard for me to say.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly easy question to answer. So, with the acquisition of Microsoft, of Activision Blizzard, what's a realistic short-term hope that you have that they might be able to influence or something, anything? Are there any realistic short-term hopes you have in your head, or you don't really care, like right now, you just want to see what they do?
I'd like to get some developers back on StarCraft.
Yeah.
Just some Blizzard folk. I think it would be good. Even if all they do is implement glittery horses in StarCraft, I don't care. I just want something. Yeah. I know this sounds stupid, and I know I don't play co-op a lot, but I think I know it's also very unlikely to happen. I think it would be sick if they resume co-op, like just releasing a commander or something, or just do an update on the rotation, or add a new mutation. Like, these guys have been begging for content for the past freaking 5 years or so. I think it would be cool to give them just anything, really.
Especially considering it's the largest part of the player base.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on board with you there. I think that sounds very realistic. Like, maybe not new commanders and stuff. I guess we'll see. Yeah. That's not short term anyway. But yeah, skins and stuff like that. Implementation of skins, I think, is a realistic short term thing.
Yeah.
I also think the easiest thing for them to do is just to inject some cash into StarCraft Esports. That doesn't require much other than allocating funds, right? There's no development there.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be an interesting way for it to go. But I don't know. I guess we're going to see. I do have some relatively high hopes. So, what are your expectations for Stormgate?
I don't really have any expectations for Stormgate. I legit have no clue. Like, legitimately just none.
Fair enough.
It could be huge, it could be not huge. Like, it could literally be anything. The game could be great. The game could be worse than StarCraft. Like, literally anything can happen. I just have no clue.
That's definitely true. So, what do you think like a next generation RTS developer can do to capture some fans that are into other genres? Like, is there anything that you think that like seems clear to you that would be helpful in capturing people that are not already RTS fans?
No, I don't. I think one of the things that's really cool in most other games is that playing with friends is much easier. As in, you really need to put in some effort in StarCraft to play with friends and have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think if you can, I think the social experience in StarCraft always was kind of lacking. And I think if you have that, if people enjoy doing something with other people, then it can kind of organically grow. I think that's a huge benefit that team games have.
What do you think are some potential pitfalls for the Frost Giant team? Like, what do you think is a possible misstep that might do some damage to what they're trying to do? I
think there's loads of things that could go wrong. Like, they could accidentally burn down their studio. they could ship their product unfinished. Like, I don't know, like there's so many things that could go wrong. I think they're much more experienced game developers than I am, and I'm sure they'll understand what the risks are. I'm not a game developer. I don't know what.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. I just want the game to be fun. If the game is fun, I'll play it. If it's not fun, I won't play it.
I think that's a pretty good mindset.
I think it's a very universal mindset when it comes to games as well.
Yeah. So that's about all I had prepared for you. So you have any closing words?
No, the closing words. Shout out to Shopify, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Loads of fun videos every day.
Sick.
All right.
Thanks
for
for
the interview. Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Get subscribed so you don't miss out on future releases like this one. If you really enjoy what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. That's all for now, my friends. Until next time. And then obviously, same thing. If you have any question you don't want to answer, things of that nature, let me know.
I'll give you the finger every time you say something stupid.
Very
good. And a second one if it's truly dumb.
That I'm going to leave in.